The Razzie Awards were established in 1981 with the intention of being a satirical counterpoint to the highbrow Academy Awards, with the joke ceremony eventually developing enough notoriety to receive national recognition. And though the Razzies have a somewhat less sophisticated approach than the Oscars when picking the supposed worst of the worst movies each year, they have just as much of a penchant for getting it wrong when making their decisions each year.
This has led to a number of decisions that seem quite questionable in retrospect at both the Oscars and the Razzies over the year, including perhaps the worst decision in Razzies history when they nominated Ennio Morricone's legendary score for The Thing. As a result, many of the best filmmakers in the world have been nominated for Razzies, and some less than stellar movies have made their way into the running for the top awards at the Oscars.
Ron Howard's best films have landed him 4 Oscar nominations, with 2 for A Beautiful Mind, winning both, and 2 for Frost/Nixon. But he's also received 2 Razzie nominations, including for The Da Vinci Code, ultimately losing Worst Director to M. Night Shyamalan's Lady in the Water.
Howard's penchant for Oscar bait dramas has led to his potential for boom or bust movies in terms of critical reception, a penchant that got him back into the Razzie conversation for his most recent film Hillbilly Elegy. Elegy also entered Glenn Close into an exclusive group of actors nominated for a Razzie and Oscar for the same performance.
Barry Levinson went on a hot streak of Academy praise in the 80s and 90s, securing 5 nominations within a decade and finally grabbing his Best Picture win in 1989 for Rain Man after it achieved the highest box office gross of the year and 8 other Oscar nominations.
Levinson's Razzie nomination came in 1992 with Toys, which despite its stacked cast featuring Robin Williams, Joan Cusack, LL Cool J, and Jamie Foxx was a box office disaster and critically panned. But he still managed to escape the Razzie, which instead went to David Seltzer, who won for Shining Through.
Gus Van Sant won the Golden Raspberry, the Razzie's equivalent of Best Picture, for his poor remake of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Van Sant's version was a near-perfect replication and shot-for-shot remake of Hitchcock's horror masterpiece, and ultimately was panned as a pointless remake, unexpectedly starring Vince Vaughn.
In contrast, his Oscar directorial career includes 2 critically acclaimed, star-driven, dramas with Good Will Hunting and Milk both securing nominations for the director. Van Sant continues to produce and make films to this day and may have more chances to get recognition from the Academy.
Darren Aronofsky is a one-time nominee for both the Razzies and the Oscars, making the Best Picture contender Black Swan in 2011 and a Golden Raspberry contender in 2017 with his incredibly polarizing film Mother. Aronofsky and Mother lost the Best Director award at the Razzies to Tony Lentlus's animated film The Moyo Movie.
Aronofsky's films have a reputation for being divisive and sometimes difficult to watch, laden with heavy-on-the-nose religious allegories. So it's no surprise that his films have had such contradictory reactions from the respective voting bodies. But Black Swan was anchored by 2 incredible performances by Mila Kunis and Natalie Portman that brought mainstream acclaim to Aronofsky's Oscar-nominated film.
George Lucas's work creating the most iconic movie franchise in film history ended up being a blessing and a curse when it came to the Razzie and Oscar voters during Lucas's long and genre-bending movie career. Lucas lost his 2 Best Director nominations to Woody Allen and George Roy Hill, and lost his Worst Director Razzies to Barry Sonnenfeld and Guy Ritchie.
Lucas received 2 of his 3 Oscar nominations for Star Wars in 1978 for both Best Picture and Best Director, but the infamous prequel series in the 2000s landed him 2 matching Razzie Awards for The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Fans perceived the prequels as a huge disappointment compared to the original films, leading to the Razzie turn from the originally Oscar-nominated films.
Oliver Stone is one of the most awarded directors in Oscars history despite his many projects that never got made, securing 3 wins from his 11 nominations during his career. He won the Best Director award for Platoon and Born on the 4th of July. Stone lost his Worst Director Razzie to another dual Razzie and Oscar nominee, Kevin Costner.
Stone is another one of the more divisive directors in Hollywood, especially for his willingness to dive into controversial political topics and conspiracy theories, and it is no surprise that he has found himself getting attention from both the Oscars and Razzies.
M. Night Shyamalan remains one of the most awarded directors in Razzies history and is one of 3 filmmakers to have won the Golden Raspberry twice to go along with his 4 nominations.
After a great start to his movie-making career that included the critically acclaimed The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, Shyamalan's reputation soured amongst fans and critics despite his movies continuing to do well at the box office, with his one Oscar nominee for The Sixth Sense in 1999. Shyamalan's early career had him billed as the next Steven Spielberg, and though his critical reputation has soured, his initial films were showered with praise.
Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner is another member of this list to not only be nominated for both an Oscar and Razzie, but to also have won both the Golden Raspberry and Best Picture of the respective award shows.
Costner received both an acting and directing Oscar nomination for Dancing with Wolves, but was then nominated for 2 Razzies in the following 5 years. After being nominated for a Razzie for the huge flop Waterworld, Costner won 2 years later for The Postman.
Tom Hooper. Tom Hooper is a one-time nominee for both the Golden Raspberry and Best Picture, coming home with a win for the award both times. Hooper's short directorial film career has included genre-hopping movies that have mostly included musicals and biodramas.
Hooper's mostly respectable and Oscar-worthy career fell apart somewhat in 2019 though, with his star-packed disaster Cats, which has since built up an extraordinary reputation for being one of the biggest flops in movie history.
And last but not least, Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick has a reputation of being one of the greatest filmmakers in history, making classics like 2001, A Space Odyssey and Dr. Strangelove, and being nominated for 13 Oscars during his career. But even he fell victim to the reactionary voters of the Razzie Awards.
During the first ever Razzie Awards, Kubrick was nominated for Worst Director for The Shining, now known as one of the most influential and iconic horror movies ever, showing that the Razzies don't always get it right.